So first of all, we'll go through this week's work. We got a few big ones firing up this week. We got the Reservoir Road Collect starting off, which Ryan's heading up. So that's all weekend for the rest of this month, I believe. And we have a lot of guys, 4 crews, I reckon, heading away to Madam, SA Water with Renzi. So that's also two country fortnights in a row. I think it's the same people mostly, so you'll be all aware of that. And other than that, the guys that are hanging around, we've got HV and LV maintenance, some poles, and today we're switching in the Fourth Creek feeder. So yeah, everyone here will work on that at some point. So there's a heap of switching going on that, 2 crews are doing it. It's just basically closing and opening all day long. Got a fair bit of switching, so if you're on that, make sure you're switched on. And there's also transport vault replacement as well. That is it for the work. Reece, if you want to go over the switching toolbox, please.
Yeah, just make sure we're utilising all resources available when identifying switching points, feeder plans, labels and poles, TF, cubicles, etc. And definitely mobile TC seems to be the most updated version of the resources. And treat HV and LV with the same respect. We also have a new HV phasing tester to replace the K2. It's an extension of the existing Kameko we already have, and it's been trialled on the job already. See anyone from St Mary's Depot if you want to know how it works, got any questions on it. And don't focus on statistics too much, look out for each other and make sure we're constantly making the effort to keep our heads in the game, not only in switching but through the work as well. So make sure when you get to that, the switching briefing, your mind's straight in the job, don't go through the motions, switch on. Current days is 4, so let's just keep heads in the game, right?
Thanks, Reece. There's quite a few near-miss hazards and safety alerts to go through, and a bit of general depot stuff. So a couple of near misses. We had a damaged water pipeline out on the Baggett-Well Swear restring job. It wasn't actually us that damaged it, it was the civil contractor. I believe it was a water line that wasn't always used, so there was no water running out at the time. They just assumed it wasn't working, and a week or so later, it come back through Sappan. So Remo have been advised to, repeating that they need to be fixing things even if they're not running, because that was the case in this stage. So that was nothing to do with us, but just to keep in mind. We had a minor head bump. Looks like the back of the Tadano. You muchy, so if you're on the back of the Tadano, someone shouted out, stood up quick, so probably a good idea to have your hard hat on if you're up there crawling around. Otherwise, just be aware of your surroundings around you. So that's it for the misses. A lot of you would have seen there's some jobs out on last Friday in the bulletin. So we've got 3 3A positions and 4 4A positions which are advertised internally. So full-time here can go for them. If they're not filled internally, then they're going to go onto seek externally in a couple of weeks, I suppose, Todd, is that right? Yeah. So have a look at them if you're interested. Apply for it. Daryl's also returning back to his role at the Close Workshop in June this year. So there's a bit of a transition plan going ahead for that, obviously, while Evan still continues his health treatment. So I'll be backfilling Evan's role, the NOP supervisor role. Ryan's going to be coming into the TSW8 role, and we will be advertising for a 6-month TSW6 comment to backfill Ryan in that time. So Daryl's going to be buying some beers at the end of June, hopefully, for a lad out. Bit of timesheet communication from Julia. So she says if she sends a text out to you about timesheets, just respond to it so she knows that you've received it. Don't just fix it. I guess if you fix it, she knows, but you might have seen it and you're going to fix it later. Just give her a text back so she knows. She's still getting in draft, in process entries. So unless phones aren't working, they should be coming through. So if you have any issues, see someone about it, don't just let it hang in the background, because as we always say, Julie's got to look at all of them, so does Daryl, when it takes up a lot of their time. Now we move on to a heap of alerts. I'll go through one first and a couple of lads can ring some out. So it's a safety excellent, this one. So custom installation back to LB Network. There's a Marston crew, we're out switching to change a pole and transformer. or erect a new pole and transformer. During the LV switching, they found the LV to still be live after it was all isolated. So exactly the same as what we did, except we found from the HV recently. So they did some investigating and they found a three-phase service with solar and battery on it. They isolated that and it fixed the problem. So there's obviously lots of issues out there where things aren't wired correctly on the electrician's side. So we've just got to be mindful that we're doing our tests correctly all the time. Never assume, because I think that's 3 or 4 in recent times that that's happened. So well done on them for their testing to pick that up. Well done on our guys as well. We did the same thing, just wasn't recorded straight away. I'll hand over to Corey now. He's going to go through a couple of safety alerts, and then Redsy's also got a couple to go through.
It's got one on transformers, there'll be conductors. Extending underground mains going out to the transformer, acting the neutral cables for transpose. Which resulted in the neutral being live when energised. We have been doing connecting up transformers without doing tests with the meter mechanic, because we got approval to do it. So when taken, make sure you treat it as a special step with operator and a checker. Then we've got a failed air brake. While the air brake, one of the insulators has fallen off and come into close contact with the operator, so just remember the condition of the apparatus and just make sure you set that in place.
That first one he went through is important. And I want to go into that a bit further because when we change underground transformers where we can't isolate, well, we can, we need a mechanic to isolate every service. We've been getting denied meter mechanics, they won't come out to help us. We've been told by a rep in Saturn that when you disconnect, before you disconnect the cables, treat it as operator checker to tape them up, and when you put them back, do the same, and then treat it like an overhead transformer where we don't test there either. But this is an example of how it can easily go wrong. This wasn't a transformer, it was under cable feed, and they've obviously transposed the issue and enacted. So be mindful when doing any of that work.
Why are we not getting mechanics?
Because we're told this is accepted practice, even though you can't find it in any manual anywhere. And this come up because we'll get denied mechanics. So. And I understand because sometimes it's just very impractical to test 50 services or whatever. But I've got an email, so I'm happy. But as long as we all, and it'll be in the briefings if we do that, that you've got to treat this as an operator checkers style step, not just one person taking cable down.
So if you're cutting in a pit, like in between the tranny and the first pit, what would you do then?
It depends on each scenario, how many services are there, whatever. Myself, I always want to get a meter mechanic, but I know for tranny changes, they've denied me twice.
So just straight out tranny change, not changing that.
Yeah, I think in an underground situation like that, you definitely want to mechanic out there. I'd want one for a transformer change, this is what we've been told, so. It's a pity. Hopefully in the future, people like Josh, we can get him trained up to be able to do it himself and we can manage it in-house. That'll be ideal. Renty, I'll hand over to you, mate.
Alright, I've got a red alert here. It's an asset strike and electric shock. So basically a contractor was digging around the base of a sturdy pole to install a conduit for NBN. Died before he digs and everything was done. So they knew where all the assets were on the pole. There was over under service. He was jackhammering the base of the pole, and in doing that, he'd broken the conduit for under over service, damaging tube mains. Didn't realise because it says his jackhammer was double insulated. And then while he was mucking around in the hole, installing the conduit, some of the water that had leaked out of the open under service is damaged, has given him shock. So yeah, not ideal. No serious injuries, obviously had electric shock, so went and got checked out. But just identify the hazard. We probably do that a bit. I'd say we're a bit more careful than that, but just be mindful with digging around stable poles down to services, there's a bit of a risk there. And a live cable abolishment. So an EI crew went to a property to disconnect its supply completely for abolishment. They disconnected 2 phases from unfused pit. And then the civil or the construction mob that were abolishing the house noticed sparks coming from the roof while they started abolishing. Realised that there was an actual overhead service going to the side of the house. It was hard to see because the new house had been built right beside it with 3 phases. So supply had actually been moved from the unfused pit to the overhead service during a plec. So there's some learning points. All isolations must be accessible and tested. Very effective disconnection of supply mains. So I guess it's probably something that we wouldn't do, but if we do go to do a disconnection, do a walk around the place, just try and identify any means where supply might be coming from that we don't think. But yeah.
Just lastly, guys, I know we're just this week, we've not the only has obviously we've got driving and everything else on top, but just look after each other. Operators operate, checkers check. Just take the time at each item, make sure you're right. Look after your mate that's sitting next to you, right? That's it for me, unless anyone else has got anything they want to.
It's not too late to get into the weight loss challenge today. So weigh in. If you want to join, $50 after the winner. Half to we'll do something for Evan and his family. The other half, if you want, about 10 of us in, I think.
It's a good idea. A lot of us need it. Self-included. Cheers, guys.